thank you for the Talanoa mapping that I want to ask to you, of course. Thank you. And I will welcome and saluto Francesco Postiglione per essere qui. Grazie per aver aspettato, ti chiedo scusa. Ecco, now the session will be in Italian translated. Today there will be some of them. Francesco, quando vuoi partire ti lascio subito la parola, così ti presenti e partiamo. Intanto faccio partire l'interprete.
Sì, io Domenico vorrei provare a parlare in inglese.
Ok.
Poi
Go
se
ahead.
c'è un interprete che mi corregge o traduce, non sarò assolutamente offeso di questo, perché conosco l'inglese ma non è molto praticato da tempo, quindi però vorrei provarci anche con
Ok, go
l'aiuto delle
ahead.
slide, ok?
Go ahead.
Ok,
Don't worry.
so,
Guarda, se
hi.
solo ha capito me direi che puoi andare tranquillo, non ti conosco, ma
Ok,
peggio del mio
ok.
inglese non può andare, quindi...
Okay. So, since now I will speak in English, okay? Hi to everyone. I'm Francesco Postiglione. I was invited by Domenico to have this brief speech, and we will have a kind of discussion, I hope. My theme, I will explain with slides, but very, very shortly in time, okay? So I go ahead to show you some slides. My theme is education to democracy and ecology. How? I will not present myself, we will not spend time in this. You can see the link if you want to go, if you want to know who I am and why I'm here and talking about democracy, okay? I only say that I was a philosophy teacher in schools and I study right philosophy and political philosophy. Now I'm a headmaster in a school, but I will not abandon philosophy and political philosophy. So we will try to answer these two questions. There are questions, these are the questions of the meeting, okay? How to stimulate governments, administrations, and citizens on themes like climate changing and social equity, and what instruments, most of all, can be used to take shared decisions on common problems. Let's start with a statement of Hans Kelsen, one of the most important right philosophers of the 20th century, about education to democracy. Okay, you can read the statement, but the problem is that nowadays, but not only today, since 18, I can say since 80s, sorry, since 80s, democracy is not going as Kelsen are saying in this statement. Kelsen, let's try to summarize, say that democracy is transparency. We just heard about transparency before me, and competence, sharing decisions, and rules. Okay, this is what Kelsen, in summary, says about democracy. But now it's not like this. Why democracy is in crisis today? Norberto Bobbio, another right philosopher in Italy, talks about 6 lost promises of democracy. And you can see what are these 6 lost promises of democracy in Western societies. Okay, I want to focus on unsuccessful fight against oligarchy, lack of space of representation, and unsuccessful effort to educate citizens, because I will try to give solution about these 3 lost promises of democracy. Okay, Bobbio says that democracy has failed in the fact that now groups are stronger than individuals, and there is a wrong use of representation to defend lobby interest and not collective interest as it should be. Why this is happening? First of all, another philosopher of the 90s says that a lot of decisions are taken in a non-representative bodies, like the one you can see now at the moment. So there is a failure to account participation requests, information requests, and this is a failure on citizens that are more and more aware and more informed, right, because of the effects of democracy itself. So this is Ralph Dahrendorf in this book of 2001, so it's quite in time. Well, let's see what Norberto Bobbio again says about the lack of representative democracy nowadays. I will not read, just not to take time, and we can say Bobbio says it's a deficit of how much system is representative. It's not the fact the system is not representative at all, okay? We have another problem who explains why democracy is in today. The party's crisis. Let's see what another philosopher says about party's crisis, okay? I hope you can see, you are seeing these slides. So another reason for crisis of democracy is the end of competence. Plato was the first one to speak about speak against democracy, right? Because of competence. Plato says with an example that if you want to go to a journey by ship, you will desire an expert captain and not one selected by choice. So he was against democracy. But nowadays there is the opposite argument by populisms. It seems that who has competence or titles to take a decision is seen with suspicion nowadays. If you are a professionist, if you are a director, if you are a manager, you are seen like a system slave or a people enemy sometimes. But actually, democracy is based on competence. For example, in Italian Constitution, some offices can be occupied only with specific titles, as it seems in Article 97. So there is a value in democracy of selecting with competence the officers, okay? And we are losing this principle. So we can say that there's not conflict between democracy and competence, but we have rules to be defined. Politics has to decide always, but politics has to use competence of officers, directors, technicians, and so on, and has to use this competence on a consultative basis and maybe a public basis. So democracy is not against competence, like populisms are saying today. Democracy, it is based on a difficult but beautiful principle, and so if you have to vote, you have to be informed. So if you are voting, you have a duty to document yourself, and this is another problem of democracy today, because we can say that people going to vote are not documenting themselves. They vote by stomach, maybe. Let's see some solutions. I showed problems, but I want to focus on solutions. Okay. One is offered by Jürgen Habermas, building public opinion on the way of a political communication in a proper sense. So building cultural vanguards that can influence people. Another solution is by Norberto Bobbio, education to democracy and citizenship. But Bobbio doesn't say precisely how to make education to democracy. Another solution by Habermas is return of theoretical thinking And this is just what we are doing now, not in this workshop only, but on these days of Climate Social Forum, for example. Another one is mine, competence tied with transparency, with public rules and with information. So we talk about transparency again. Transparency and competence together can make democracy and can make effective democracy. All of these, according to me, are happening in the life of NGOs and no-profit associations. Let's see statistics. 10–20% of population in every developed country, in every Western society, is a member of NGOs, while 1–2% are members of parties in 2000. This is the situation in Italy, for example, okay? And we can say that associations today are the most direct expression of popular ideas. Every association has a particular specific capacity of share and unify people on a project, on a value, or some values. Party is fading away. Most of all, is fading on the basis, on the capacity of involved people. Let's think for a moment about association in a way maybe in which we don't think about them. Associations have a life in which all professional categories, different party members, different people find common values on collective themes and sovereign individual themes. And these are political themes in a proper sense or in a proper way. Associations now are making political because they talk and discuss about common values, and they build an association, a goal and a method of fighting to realize these common values, these goals. This is what parties have made in the 18th or 19th century. Okay, there are a lot of difference by association today with actual digital parties or political movements, because digital parties, political movements are moved by leaders without sharing, but only with likes, maybe in the social media. Okay, in association, people discuss. This is what Umberto Cerroni says about associations. We can read, and according to me, is a significant transformation of our times. Okay, in associations and in culture, information, science lies a growing part of the active population. So, how can we solve the challenges of today and tomorrow? According to me, giving representative chances to new political subjects like associations. They have to be they have to conquer representative power in parliaments, not only consultative power just like it's today, but real representative, so political power in parliaments, in governments, and so on. Another solution is involvement of citizens toward technological democracy. Yes, but with active participation and ethic ways, just like we are going to make today, or yesterday, or tomorrow in this kind of forum. Okay, this is the way in which we can use technology, but not like digital parties, not only with likes, but discussing, studying together. And we can fight populism with education to citizenship, but even reestablishing ideological differences like right and left. And how to make this? For example, building political schools, but not party schools. I'm talking about political schools, just like something based on volunteers that makes what we are making now, for example. Challenges of tomorrow. One Belgian author, Van Reybrouck, is talking about draw. It seems something like choice or chance, but draw is a possibility in institutional committees made of citizens, just like popular juries, and is something that has experimented in Iceland, if I remember, and in Canada, also in Australia, if I remember. So it's real now. Draw can have some effect if we choose by draw citizens in institutional committees that have to discuss some collective problems like environment, for example. Using unanimity and consultation more than majority. Unanimity can be used in inter-parties or parliamentarian committees with procedural rules to have a unique decision, okay? With unanimity, we can defend minority, the rights of minority. I'm not saying that we have to use unanimity in all political decisions, obviously, but in some specific and collective problems, we can use more unanimity so to protect the rights of minority. Another possibility is the selection of candidates, just like John Brennan is saying in a recent book, okay, selection not of people that is going to vote, but the selection of candidates. For example, having independent authorities elected by citizens or named by public competitions for press or TV committees, for example. Popper talked about something like that. Or having committees for social media. I'm not talking about censoring the freedom of expression, but if the authorities are independent and made of people, maybe by draw, we can have the expression of people on the freedom of expression. Again, transparency. We can have public meetings of political councils with public rules of discussion. For example, we can see by TV the debates on Parliament, but we cannot see the debate in Minister Council. Why? It's possible now with technology, so it's an idea. We should have accountability of decisions. For example, with the ontological codes, with penalties for association of professionals like press or politics. Parties' budgets should be made public. In Italy, at the moment, it is not so. And we can have procedural and shared internal rules for parties, even for digital parties. In Italy, for example, at the moment, it is not so. There are not rules to elect the leader, for example. I'm going to end other ideas to fight sovereignism. First of all, as I said, growing representative power of international bodies, just like this one. Let's see. These are the here of institution of these international bodies. They are at the moment not representative, but we can grow the representative power of these international bodies, as Kelsen said in 1934, and as Kant said in 1795, so a long time ago. I'm saying that, for example, at the moment, UN decides with the Security Council, and Security Council is not a representative body because there are only 6 countries there, and it's something that should be reformed, urgent reform. Okay, I only want to launch some ideas to you and discuss with you. If you want, this is my bibliography, and if you want to write me for these ideas after this meeting, these are my links. I'm taking a blog. It's called Democrazia Consapevole, Aware Democracy, and this is how you can reach me after this moment. But Domenico, I want to stop myself and take time for discussion. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Francesco. I will kindly ask to make maybe the discussion through the chat and through the question and answer session, because we have the speaker that is going and on the next session that needs to leave before. Maybe at the end of the whole session, if you want to stay, we can engage a brief discussion with all the participants. In the meanwhile, I invite all to question Francesco what you want by the chat and also by the question and answer functionality. Question to Francesco, so if there aren't. So Francesco, if you agree.
Domenico, I'm answering on chat. All
Okay.
this time I was just answering on chat, but if there are some questions live, I will be happy.
Okay, sure. So feel free to also to answer some questions to Francesco eventually, and also to Martina if there aren't, even though.
Yes, if there are any other question, I can stay just a couple of minutes. Otherwise, I would like to thank you all and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you very much. And yes, notification, you are all invited. Now I will send you an invitation to the closing plenary of the Climate Social Forum. Feel free to join as you want. So it's like an opportunity, not just an attending. So
Domenico,
yeah,
can I say something? There's one question, or maybe one statement of Giancarlo. I think it's quite good to answer here on live session. Okay. If you think. Okay, Giancarlo says in chat that there is a lack of competence in parliaments, and there is a lack of competence in electorate, but the problem is the power of media, who creates a type of education that goes in an opposite direction to what would be needed. And I think he has a right to say so. Okay, and how to solve this problem? How to solve the problem of the power of media? Media at the moment are free, maybe more or less are free, but they are not going to solve their role of educating people. Maybe they are going to make the opposite effect. So, what solutions to this problem? Okay. I think that solutions are in the social media, because they are not only free media, but everyone can establish a forum or Facebook page or a Twitter page or something like that. Everyone can establish a blog. I was doing just like this some months ago. Everyone can use social media just like instruments of informing other people. Okay, we know that social media can have the opposite effect, because we know that social media are also a place of hate, of fake news and some other things. But we can use social media also to have a free and aware information. Um, for example, all the websites of associations or the Facebook pages of associations contain a lot of free and specific and aware informations and news about the world. So, Giancarlo, I think that we can have a people power of media just more than in the 80s or 90s, because in the 80s or 90s there was only TV or radio and something like that, and for having a TV you should have money, okay, but for having a Facebook page and make information to the world, you don't need money. So we have more chances than before. This is my answer to your statement.
Thank you, Giancarlo. Thank you, Francesco. There is Sol that wants to make another question to Francesco.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just opening up my question notes. Sorry, I'm finding exactly the moment I wanted to. Okay, you were talking about civic assemblies, and you're talking now about social media and how what I heard is like a little bit of like we are either we have the power or we don't have the power, that at the moment it's working with or without other people pulling strings. And so civic assemblies and the democratic concept of being able to feel like we have a voice that matters and that makes an impact, and taking responsibility for that, like you said about listening and the power of our choices, and really what I'm hearing is learning how to use the power of the democratic system while we have it. Is that more or less what I'm hearing? Okay, and then in terms of human rights, bringing our voices together, even in situations like this, I would love to hear kind of what is your vision for that happening, and is there anything that's already being initiated that we can get behind? And lastly, I found myself working with a very interesting NGO called the Center for United Nations Constitutional Research. It's quite new, but it's powerful because it's discovering ways that our voices still have a way to make an impact on our human rights. Like, nobody said we have to stop where we were. We can add to it if we feel that this is something that's shifting and changing, and we have the right to open up and revisit our rights. So it just feels as though when you're talking about who we follow, and the social media right now being in our face even more with Corona, it's kind of a question of where do I, the viewer, feel empowered walking away from this conversation? Where would you direct me? Yeah, at this point.
Okay, the first question was what is my vision about about people power in the future. Okay, the last question, if you can repeat the last question, because I think I didn't catch it very
More
well.
about is there anything that's already in being taken the initiative that we can stand behind, so I, the viewer, can feel that I have something I can do right now, and stand behind. And you said if the system doesn't allow dialogue, the system has to change. So where can
Okay.
I be an active participant?
Okay. My vision is, I will answer to your two questions altogether in one answer, okay? My vision is, we just have, and we have since many years, we just have ability to talk, discuss, and stay together to have voice, because this is not new, okay? We are in democracy, so we have voice to talk, to discuss, and to fight some decisions of governments and so on. Okay, there's no new about that. But I think that groups, forums, associations have to conquer the power to be in parliament directly, not with the mediation of parties, because we just tried the mediation of parties in 90s, and it was failed. Okay, but I have this vision. If some associations like Emergency or like Amnesty International is present in Parliament with his members, okay, they will give to Parliament some political issues to discuss, because the issue of Amnesty International, the values of Emergency or of Greenpeace and so on, are political values. Some days ago, a friend of mine says, but if Amnesty International goes to Parliament, they will transform in politicians. Okay, and my friend was saying this in a negative way. Okay, he was thinking about transforming in politicians. Was thinking about being corrupted and so on. Okay, I answered him. They are politicians. They are more political than politicians today, because the issues of some associations on environment, on human rights, on other arguments are more political than the one of the professional politicians. Okay, and my vision is that this fact is not completely understood by associations themselves. If they understand this, they can go on the electoral round. Okay, they can go. They can be in Parliament. They can be in the electoral tournaments and so on. Okay, this is first my vision, and I think that maybe we are not so prepared today. But the rule of philosophy is not talking about today. The rule of philosophy is to imagine the tomorrow. Okay, it was also just like that. I just showed you that Kant in 1795 was talking about a unique democracy, a unique international democracy of democratic states. 1795, in the middle of Napoleonic War. Okay, so the role of philosophy is to imagine the future. Okay, and if I say so, I know that maybe we are not prepared just in this moment, but I think it's the way, because associations are having now the role of parties in the last centuries, and this is a fact. Okay, so we have to multiply the effort of forums, discussions, and so on, multiply instruments like Facebook pages or forums and so on, but we have to find the courage of being present in the electoral tournaments and so on. Okay, first of all. And the other thing is, the only other thing I would say is why associations are not prepared in this moment nowadays, because there's a lot of volunteers, obviously, but maybe there's not education to democracy inside the associations. in this sense, um, democracy is complex. Ideologies are complex, and they need studies. They need to be studied. Okay, if let's see, for example, the actual political movements like Movimento 5 Stelle or like Podemos or others, they are made of volunteers who has ethic ideas, but they don't have education to democracy. They don't have education to the internal democratic rules. Okay, and so they are on the risk of some leadership, some authoritarian leadership. Okay, because they don't know how to have procedural rules for discussion. They don't know how to vote for their leader. They don't think about voting inside themselves to some to choose some actions. The parties of 19th century, they had this culture. They had this education. Okay, so the second other thing I would say is we have to take this culture, this education to democracy to the members of associations to be prepared to go to elections. Okay, because if we don't do the same, the problem is that they can be like the digital parties today, full of good intentions, but not prepared to rules, procedures, and rules of discussion, most of all. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Francesco. I think that we are run out of time, but eventually, if there is just one last comment that someone want to share, let's give the chance. Also, because we are like reprising in almost half an hour, so we have a limited like spare time these times. But as I said, let's do a last intervention if someone want to intervene. Even though, let's thanks and congratulate Francesco for his wonderful presence here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Domenico, and thank you to you all, because for me there are only opportunities.
Thank you very much. Okay, if there aren't, let's close the session. Just a final remark that I wanted to say. Once during my studies, I had the opportunity to face out this model of sustainability that was pretty strange, because we are used to see the three spiked sustainability models where there are economical, social, and environmental, and just these three. But this model that I found was, first of all, not like circles that intersecate, but circles that were concentric. And the most wider one was the circle of participation. So participation was a dimension of sustainability. And today I think that we discover how that participation and democracy is properly one of the dimensions of sustainability that sometimes we don't cover too much also in the environmental world, we can say. And so thanks for the speakers for giving us so many inputs on different types of the democracy involvement participation that I think, in my opinion, are part of the solution for the environmental and climate crisis. Societies, communities are not a part of their environment, and also the way on they interact is part of the solution. So thank you very much for this session, to all the speakers, the ones that have lived and the one that was in the first session. And see you at 2:30, so just in a few time. We will have the session, the last session, and maybe most intriguing, that is about mobilization of youth and civil society. And finally, we will have the closing plenary this night at 9:30. I repeat, you, also the speaker, are all invited to the closing plenary, and I will send an email soon. So thank you, Francesco. Thank you to all. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Domenico.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sol. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bravissimo.
Ciao, buongiorno, Maria Grazia.
Buongiorno.
Ciao Giancarlo. Aspettiamo l'ospite di adesso. Adesso, Maria Grazia, in realtà ti chiederei dopo di ingaggiare se vuoi il dibattito, nel senso adesso c'è una speech di un ragazzo che si occupa di Just Transition e ti avevo invitato appunto come osservatore, poi dopo ci sarà la talk con Greenpeace.
Okay.
Ah, ok.
Vediamo. Nel frattempo, allora, perché forse sta scrivendo.
Eccoci,
Ciao Stefania,
ci
benvenuta.
risiamo.
Eccoci, stiamo aspettando adesso lo speaker, il ragazzo che deve parlare all'inizio.
Ok.
Vediamo. Nel frattempo, beh, non so se sì, vi siete già conosciuti in realtà a Roma.
Sì.
Con noi c'è Maria
Sì.
Grazia Midulla. Grazie. Allora, vediamo. Sì, aspettiamo. Nel frattempo qualche ragguaglio per la sessione dopo, che sarà con Greenpeace per Maria Grazia. Sarete tu e Luca Iacoboni, perché avevo invitato anche Katiuscia Eroe, ma non può venire, quindi il tema sarà appunto i sussidi ambientalmente dannosi. Faremo la talk in English, vi farò 3 domande giusto per ingaggiare la discussione, lasciandovi uno spazio all'inizio per un intervento di un po' più lungo, possiamo fare anche 7 minuti per ciascuno. Dopodiché, dopo i 7 minuti e le 2 domande che vi faccio, lasciamo il dibattito.
Ok.
Adesso aspettiamo, appunto, questo slot ci doveva essere un ragazzo di Yango in realtà che aveva chiesto di parlare, però vediamo un attimo se... Ok, sta arrivando. Ok. È arrivato. Hello? Hi, Samuel. Can you hear us? Hi, Samuel.
It's good to be here, please.
Yes. Okay, we are gonna start because we are a little bit late. I will introduce the other speakers. There is with us Stefania Romano that will be also helping in moderating then the discussion, and Maria Grazia Midulla from WWF Italy. So if you want to proceed with your speak about just transition, so you can go ahead. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak here. I want to take this time out to appreciate the panelists, Domenico, and the rest of the team, Giancarlo Zelloni, Maria Grazia, and Stefano. It's wonderful meeting you all. My name is Samuel Adurki. I'm from Nigeria. I'm a climate change and energy advocate, and I advocate for just transitions and youth development and involvement in climate change and policy decision making. And I've been privileged to be part of this year's Paris Peace events, which held earlier this month, as a delegate. So speaking on energy mainstreaming and then ending speculative finance of of climate and green innovations, and also working on how to strategically implement the Paris agreements and then the Green Deals. We understand that there are different focal points and there are different objects of the Paris agreements, and the items that are focusing on the finance, on the adaptation and the mitigation approach of climate change requires that most people, most governments be up and doing and should take responsibility in financing more sustainable and just transitions from fossil fuels. And in this way, the importance of youth engagement and collaborative work in developing these action plans, either for government or for multinationals that are in the finance, in the sectors like oil, for instance, oil and gas, needs a lot of coordination and a lot of partnerships that should actually monitor and observe how true they are to the transition agreements. For instance, even more money actually, or more finances that are focused on financing fossil fuels can be diverted into clean energy, as we are seeing in some other organizations in some other countries, mostly developed countries across the globe. If such can be replicated in all underdeveloping or developing nations, I think the transition will be faster and more transparent. So it is imperative then that we all come together and place an action like we did at the Financing Commons Summit in the build-up to the COP16, such as these events we are having now. We can always gather policymakers, decision makers, influencers of decisions and policy on the table to discuss the best way and the strategic ways to push this forward. And this also allows for non-governmental organizations, civil society organization engagement, and youth participation in pushing forward the petitions to the COP presidency and to presidents and leaders of nations, ministries, and agencies that are saddled with the responsibility of energy transition. For instance, in Nigeria, we still have a little more to achieve in the energy transition. And when we're talking about energy transition, it's not financing projects that are just particular to using solar to light up lanterns and all that. We should talk about areas like clean cooking industry. We should talk into areas like transportation, which actually we see as the major sectors or major industries that contribute to the global warming and carbon combustions. So there should be also ways of investing and divesting into sectors like agriculture for climate change mitigation or adaptation in whatever way, using energy to power sustainable development in a more feasible and sustainable way. So I think at this stage, we just need to go beyond calling on beyond chasing shadows and into making strong decisions at this point. And towards the COP26, which is scheduled for next year, 2021, I think we have a long way to go in coming together, because 2021 is just by the way, and we need to come together and put forward some initiatives and make some really loud noise out there to organizations, to governments, in our local societies, gather together civil society organizations that are partaking and that are true to and are committed to the transition state of energy globally. So at this point too, I want to advise that if we can, on our own way, help to take initiatives such as education and awareness, primarily to young people, to them seeing that the future that is being affected is due to climate change, and then young people constitutes a large number of every economy and the population. So to say, like 60% of the generation can still be considered as young, ranging between, according to the African Youth Charter, they range between 15 and 35 years, while according to the Global Charter, they range between 15 and 30, or 18 and 30. So youth should actually, we should actually help to develop the capacities of youth in learning about alternatives to fossil. And then they should also start taking initiatives that can actually help them to scale solutions like innovations and their ideas and make it work, and also financing those initiatives. And in those little micro scales, those initiatives that are being financed can actually find expressions into the carbon footprints that are being set by countries and nationals. So on this table, there would be decision makers like ministers, as we all have. We can have organizations like National Renewable Energy Labs. We can have IRENA and international energy agencies and major organizations globally that are championing the cause of energy transition. We can have them to come speak. We can have top policy makers to come sit together and make decisions for the young people. And while making decisions for the young people, we cannot leave the young people out of the decision-making process. Rather, we should bring them to the table and make them more inclusive and participatory in taking actions and decisions. And we should actually see a way of making investors and all these organizations, like we have already the IRENA and the European Youth Network, are doing a lot in the SDG7 youth constituency, where I've been opportune to showcase my initiatives and my organization's initiatives. We have a lot of young people that are being trained by organizations, international energy organizations like the REN 21, IRENA, and the lots of them. So we can have more civil society participation. We can have more engagement on financing youth initiatives, on educating youth and making them go into deep research and development on energy issues. And this is a way of being just to ourselves. This is a way of being fair to the youth and being fair to the future generation of the youth. And at this point, I think I can actually let you know also that we can all do this together if we only believe that we have a common problem and we work towards achieving a solution for our problems by setting targets for ourselves. We can have targets for the next 1 year, the next 5, 10, 15 years. And this is how we create a future, a just and resilient future for everyone, where no one is left behind in any way. So we should also look more into the economic aspects of things. While developing microgrid projects, we should consider that beyond these projects, or we should find ways where the projects can contribute to the economic lifestyles of people that are being targeted. For instance, if we have communities that are being targeted at development or at a pilot, we should consider the whole community approach of engaging everyone in seeing to the fact that they have to develop these plans themselves, because the plans should be for them. They should be able to take responsibility at maintaining infrastructures that are located and sited in their localities for development, so that resilience can actually be built over time, and it would not be at the detriment, economic detriment of investors and governments or personal organizations that are coming up with such projects in their community. So at this point, I should also talk more about the finance. Like recently, the European Green Deal that is being set out, we should actually push more to let there be a transparency in the process of financing clean energy and the other instruments that are entailed in the just transition measures. So at this point, I would like to drop my points. Where I am right now is actually very noisy. So I would like to drop my point and let the moderator take over. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samuel. Thank you also for your insights and your points. And I want, before giving the floor to the audience and maybe to engage a brief discussion, I want to ask to you if you want to share with us your experience. You are the founder of Innovea. This is also an example of concrete activation of youth also towards a transition that you said that need to be just and need to foster also the fact that no one need to be left behind. So maybe if you want to tell more about your experience on that.
Yeah, thank you very much. As a youth and as an individual who is passionate about development and advancement, and I had background in the areas of science and technology as a physicist, electronics, and graduates with background in renewable energy, in artificial intelligence, solutions, environment physics, where I carried out most of my research. I've always tried to build a career around the environment, technology, innovation, and most importantly, the youth. So this has been my motivation at getting exposed to events that actually has helped me in developing personally and taking up initiatives for myself and the community at large. Saw me characterizing ionizing radiations from waste, and we saw that the volume of waste generated in globally actually can actually power uh, the entire global energy deficit. In what sense? If we choose to domesticate our waste through biomass, biogas, we can actually see that there's going to be a circular economy model that can be built in developing waste and turning it into usable energy. And we can also identify that there are important factors while addressing different issues that are related to people. Basically, for instance, in Africa, there's always a mindset that is negative generally, but we should look beyond the mindset. We should actually focus on how we can ensure connectivity of our initiatives, of our ideas, of our solutions with the audience. We have to work on the cultural psychologies of the audience we are targeting. We have to make them see reasons why it is important to take some decisions and take up some responsible consumption pattern. And while doing this, we should watch the scenario, because most of them might just get overwhelmed with the information. So we shouldn't give them too much information. Rather, we should act and take decisions and take initiatives. And when they begin to see the results of the actions and the initiatives and the decisions and probably policies that have been made, they can begin to see the effects on the environment, on the economy, on individual lifestyles and livelihoods, development, for instance, then they begin to get more interested in this. So the basic challenges we've experienced as youth initiatives locally and regionally is we always have little support from the government, of course, you know that, and that's why we are developing action plans and, of course, building building enterprises as well as social enterprises, and as well as coming up with a non-profit that will not actually work work as a government entity, but they work independently to solve community-based solution and problems and challenges. So I will encourage more youths to get engaged in such courses and then have a way of interfacing with the government at taking them to their words and holding them accountable and responsible. Like I used to say that at this point, youths have to step up the game, and according to the theme of this event, step up. So we can step up the game by actually taking the challenge to decision makers, policy makers, actors, and global leaders to actually make sure that the green deals are working for the green sector recovery. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samuel. Thanks to you. And yeah, one of the goals of the social forum, climate social forum, is to like connect also and create what we say the virtual agora among different actors inside the climate change scenario: youths, experts, professionists, NGOs, and so on. And in fact, properly starting from today, we will foster also the discussion in the next tables of today. But today we have with us Maria Grazia Midula, that is from WWF Italia, and Stefania Romano, that is from DM25 and Climate Reality Project. And so also this environment now is like a way to foster this dialogue in order to like find the ideas and proposal for a just transition. The topics of today, as we addressed, are more on finance and economy. And also you pointed out in your point, Samuel, the need to finance and to like make investments in a way on and apply resources on, for example, you cited energy projects or energy transition activities and so on. And properly on that, I will open maybe the discussion, giving also the floor to Stefania and to Maria Grazia to have the opportunity also to discuss on this point, how we can mobilize, for example, finance and resources towards more innovation projects and sustainable projects.
I don't know whether Maria Grazia, you want to just talk fast. I would be very happy if you want to give an overview and then I just follow. You let me know, or I can give some hints.
I can say a few words because I was supposed to be in another discussion, and I felt myself in this one. But it's interesting, and I'm always happy to know somebody from other countries, especially from Africa. And I wanted just to say that we are discussing a lot about just transition and recovery plans in Europe, as you know. And I think there are different elements that we are discussing at the moment. And the reality is very different, but I think that you can find something that can be useful. First of all, on finance, yes, there should be some way of helping the communities, especially in regions and the countries in which that are mostly fossil fuel based. This is a part of what the Green Fund should be about, and this is also part about also international. It's something that international cooperation should help about. But the debate we are in now in Italy and in Europe in general is how to spend the money, because of course it is important to help communities, not better directly fuel the initiatives from communities, but at the same time it's important to have a framework in which these projects happen, in order to be sure that the money are not spent for spot initiative on one issue or another, but they are spent in order to create an environment, to create a system for the transformation, for the transition. This is the first issue. The second issue is of course that in some communities fossil fuels are important also because they employ people from the communities, and it is very important that the government should assure them an environment in which there could be possible for people to go from a job to another job, or at least to have a social insurance or some provision in order not to suffer too much. That's important, and I think for doing that, it's very important that there is a plan, there is a strategy, there is a vision. That's exactly what we are saying to Italy, to the government of Italy, and I think that's exactly what you could be asking from your government as a youth and as constituencies. But last but not least, I think that the initiatives from the bottom-up initiatives from communities are a key, it's very important that you see the transformation that is taking place, not as something that is happening in one field or another, in transportation and not in energy, and not in energy efficiency in buildings and so on, because this transformation is taking place on all sectors, in all sectors, and that's important. It's also very important that communities can bring in their culture, because sometimes the culture is a way of pursuing the objective, the goals, in a way that the market is not able to decide and understand. It's important so that all this transformation is done involving people, not on top of people, not on top of communities. That's something important for people in Nigeria, as it is for people in every other country. Over.
Thank you very much, Maria Grazia, for your point of view. And I want to ask also to Stefania, giving her the floor. Maria Grazia addressed more the necessity of finding how to spend in a right way the money. And to you, I want to ask how to avoid to spend bad the money. So
that's the I'm very much afraid that the national resilience and recovery plans are not going to be using the money properly, and that's, I think, a real danger for just for us Italians, but also, you know, just as for us as European citizens. And this is something that we have been discussing. We have had a very interesting discussion with Yanis Varoufakis on the 9th of October on the Green New Deal and the key messages, and Lorenzo Fioramonti was there, the former Minister of Education, and he was very blunt about that. We have to be very careful how we're going to be using the money, because most of this money are loans and we have to give them back. And we know that somehow our bureaucracy in Italy is very cumbersome, and also the number of the projects that we're going to be submitting are just not necessarily focused on industry and social requalification, rather on ordinary maintenance. So we have to be very careful, because I think that the clock is ticking, and it's really time to take action. And when we talk about financing, I was listening very interestingly to Samuel talking about his experience in Africa, and he was mentioning some agencies like IRENA. I was working with them very much when I used to work for the Italian Minister of the Environment. I was seconded to international organizations, and we have run a number of activities. So it was just saying, just highlighting the fact that we have to be co-creating action. And I like very much when he also said we have to be pushing more investments from the European Union, because they're doing a lot, but not necessarily enough, not necessarily they're up to the expectations. And Maria Grazia was saying very clearly that not only we have to be careful on how the money is spent, but also we have to be relying on international cooperation and on communities. Now, there is a point that I think it's core to the problem. We really have to be looking at the core of the problem. And the core of the problem is somehow the financial system. And we know that I mean, when we talk about the financial system, we talk about banks. Now, in 2019, the world's largest banks invested more than $2.36 trillion in sectors that governments and scientists agree are the primary drivers of biodiversity destruction. Now, banks play a key role in the financial system that somehow free rides on biodiversity. We have to say that bluntly. We are in the midst of a mass extinction event, which is termed as Anthropocene extinction, and that's the first of its kind that has been caused by humans. So humans have impacted nearly every corner of the planet, and scientists are saying it clearly. They're warning about biological annihilation. Now, the focus has always been put on governments and companies. They have been held as liable, but we have to be looking at the actors of the finance sectors, because they have largely eluded and evaded scrutiny. Now, why does it matter? It does matter because they are financing those activities that somehow cause biodiversity loss. Our human life, our survival depends on nature, and COVID-19 has shown it very clearly. I mean, nature underpins our health, our societies, our economies, and if we just radically alter nature, then we create the conditions in which pandemics emerge. So it's not that the environmental destruction is an unfortunate byproduct of economic developments. It's the other way around. It's just quite the reverse. So our abusive relationship with nature is contributing to a hole in the economy of $8 trillion, rising unemployment, social inequality. So somehow half of the world's GDP is indebted to nature, in the services that nature provides for activities that somehow, from which human beings are benefiting and are directly causing biodiversity loss, like fishing, mining, and the supply chain from retail or processing to trade commodities and construction. Now, there is a number of banks that somehow are liable, that are just the largest exposure to biodiversity risk, and they are in the US, they are in Europe, they are in China, they are in Japan. That they are responsible for 32% of their loans to infrastructures, 25% with metal and mineral mining, and the further 20% with fossil fuels. So it's to prevent extinction. I mean, we have to make sure that banks stop funding those activities, because somehow it's just the governments that allow banks to be running activities on which are like food production system, forestry, mining, fossil fuels, infrastructures, tourism, the relocation of goods and people all around. Those are the primary drivers of global extinction. And Maria Grazia was saying it quite clearly before. We need international cooperation. Now, I have worked on behalf of the Italian ministry in that very field, because I was seconded to international organizations. And I was in Japan when there was the convention, the IT Global Biodiversity in 2010. But none of the targets have been met. Just 18 years ago, we had the World Summit on Sustainable Development. 20 years ago, we had the Rio Summit. Now, the issue is, the point is that humans are consciously destroying biodiversity and the ecosystem services that we rely on. That's absurd, but that's the reality. So clearly, current policies and conservation efforts are insufficient to protect our environment and sustainably make a sustainable use of nature. So what we really need is a transformative change all across economic, social, political, and technological segments. But the economic actors are like major, and they have to be rewriting the rules with responsibility and coming up with a new cultural somehow setup. So this is major, and this is something that somehow, I mean, has to be pointed out. We have to be. It's time for changing, reorganizing the system that we have, that has been producing this. I mean, pollution, climate change, and then the negative effects that we are experiencing like COVID-19.
Thank you, Stefania, and thank you all for your insight. Now I will open the floor for also the participants if they have some question or they want to intervene into the discussion. Even if the speakers want to reply also to the current statements. And also, I just remember one very important thing. I mentioned about the Climate Social Forum, and one also of the goals of the Climate Social Forum is to foster discussion in order to propose ideas and like stimulate the dialogue on that. And for this, we have created these documents, these track documents, one of each of the main tracks that we call the climate action paths that we are addressing. So feel free to fill in your inputs and inside the documents. They are briefly structured with the 3 guiding questions that are the ones of the Talanoa dialogue. So where we are, the state of art of the problem, where do we want to go? So which are the goals to go beyond the problems, and how do we get there? So methodology and strategy, both for the local, national, and global level. So Giancarlo, you can open the microphone and also speak. So please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I've just sent a question. I read the question. There would be a need for reliable political partners in the institutions to ensure proper use of resources. This is the most important question, how to face this challenge.
Okay. Who wants to take the floor? We can make a round of intervention on that.
Can I start?
Go ahead.
Okay. I will just give you my own experience, because I have worked for the Italian Minister of the Environment for a long time, and I've seen setting up very many policies, frameworks, conventions all across and all around. So there is a lot of responsibility which has to do with the political setup and approach of the situation. But I was in Rio +20 in 2012, and I was listening to one of the major, I would say, player in that political player, I would say, Pepe Mujica, the former president of Uruguay, and when his speech was really astounding. It was really different, because he wasn't just saying, okay, we're just working on that, that's what we are doing, just kind of filling the forms with all of very good words. No, I was just saying it very clearly. I mean, we created a society which is not working, and when he's asked about what the solution is, I mean, he doesn't really have a solution. He says it just reminds us that somehow the economic development is useless unless happiness is part of the equation. So we're just pushing for economic development, forgetting that somehow we are happy when we have sound human relations. So the problem is political, but first of all, the problem comes from us. I mean, we really have to change the way how we have set up the societies. It's very simple, but it cannot be GDP, that will solve our problem. It's not technology that is going to be solving our problem. It's just us. I mean, we are consciously destroying the environment, so it has to come from us. But each of us, so it's politicians, it's bankers, it's artists, it's indigenous communities, it's poets, it's it has to be coordination, but we really have to change the approach, the mindset, the cultural, societal patterns. That's pivotal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stefania. Also take the chance, if the other speaker want to make their statement. Samuel, if you want to add something.
There's nothing to add for now. I think we all spoke well, and we just need to go beyond talking, and we need to take actions, visible actions, measurable impacts, and making sure what we're discussing actually is yielding results for us. So beyond this, we should actually work on whatever it is we've been working on before, establish more partnerships, to foster development for the just transition, we should push for more actions, because if we keep pushing for more, then we keep getting results. If we don't keep pushing for more, we get less results, and we may not even actually totally maximize the finances that are around the spaces for the just transitions we're clamoring for. So it is important these actions keep growing, the voices keeps complementing the actions, and the two should be on the pari passu, how we can actually successfully get results for our advocacies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samuel. Maria Grazia, if you want to add something.
Sorry, did you hear what I said?
Okay.
I'm sorry, but I cannot hear very well, so I couldn't hear what Samuel said. So go ahead.
Please let me just make this remark again. I said at this point we should just focus on how to actually bring our actions and our words into alignment, and the two should go in pari passu as to driving impacts and measuring impacts of our actions and our agitations, not just to the government but to the agencies that are in charge, the caucus, and then people that are actually the major decision makers, and they should be held accountable and responsible for the just transitions requirements. So doing, we can actually finally get results for our agitations and what we as environmentalists or as development practitioners have been working towards for a long time, so that our efforts are not jeopardized by indecisions. Because if we don't keep pushing, if we don't keep talking, then they begin to get relaxed, and then there's a tendency that our inputs are jeopardized, and then our voices are not heard, and then our actions are in vain. So in order to forestall this, we need to take more action to complement our words and our advocacies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samuel. Maria Grazia, if you want to add something to the previous statements.
Yeah, it's difficult for me to come in because I really cannot get what Samuel is saying. There is a big noise. I don't know if I'm the only one who gets
No,
it.
it's a background noise, Maria Grazia, it's true. A lot of background noise.
Yeah, but anyway, I see that somebody is saying about the political partners. I think that's an issue in every country, and that's for sure. And that's where the civil society comes in, Samuel. I think that's precisely the role of civil society as a whole. So I mean, also it's. I think that the civil society globally can reinforce the action of civil society locally. That's also important. And I'm sure that the different youth movements like Fridays for Future and so on will help a lot on this. And but of course it means that making also connections and making sure that you don't go from unreliable partners or officials or systems to other unreliable people. That's for sure. Sometimes that's particularly difficult, and I remember a lot of negotiations about this issue, because sometimes what happens in the negotiation is that a sort of a patronizing attitude from the Western institutions, and that's something that cannot help civil society locally. So it's an issue that should be dealt primarily by local communities and civil societies, and then also with the help of the global civil constituencies and or even institutions. But if the local communities are not active, there is no hope for solving the problem at all.
Thank you, Maria Grazia, and thank you for all the speakers. Now we are finished our time for this session, and we are starting the other session also with Maria Grazia. We'll reach also Luca Iacoboni of Greenpeace, and the topic will be how to avoid environmental harmful subsidies and stop them. So Maria Grazia, you're very welcome to stay here. Yes, Luca has just arrived. And thank you very much for this session. Now we'll stop for 1 second the live session, and we will go live suddenly with the next round. Parallelly, there will be another session on Article 6, where there is also Samuel as a panelist. So I invite Samuel to join the other room. And thank you very much to all, and let's stop for 1 second and reprise with the next roundtable. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Of course, Stefana, you also invited to stay.
Ah, okay. I didn't know that.
Ok. So, ora stop un secondo. Ok, allora